How often should EMs be allowed for nursing homes and the homebound? Thank you for asking this question, Marcus. This is how people argue with me on this issue because I talk about it all the time. In fact, one of my blessings in life is that I get to emails from dozens of people saying, hey, I've been watching your video. I was a Eucharistic minister. At first, I was really offended by what you said, and I felt you were judging me. But then as I prayed about it, I realized, no, that's a good point. And I met with my priest and explained I'm not going to be a Eucharistic minister anymore. I get a lot of those notes, and I think it's wonderful. Praise be to God. But people will come back at me and say, well, what about all the people that are homebound and the people in nursing homes and the people in the hospital? How are they ever going to get the Eucharist if we get rid of Eucharistic ministers, Taylor? And I say they'll receive the Eucharist the same way people used to receive it for the past 1950 years. I'm like, well, how is that? Priests bring them Holy Communion. That's how it was always done. I was reading an old manual and it said that if you've been sick and not able to attend Mass, I think it was either 3 Sundays or 4 Sundays, you have the right for a priest to come and visit you and bring you communion. I was like, oh, okay, that was the custom. I don't know exactly the dates on that, but I was reading it in an old manual book and I was like, okay, so that's how this thing works. So if you were not attending Mass for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you could notify the church and the priest would visit you. It's important that a priest does it, by the way, because we don't believe just in the Eucharist. We also believe in confession. We shouldn't presume that because someone is homebound in a nursing home or sick, that, Susan comes in with the Eucharist and gives them the Eucharist. What if they need to go to confession? This is why a priest should be bringing Holy Communion. He can hear their confession, and then he can give them the Eucharist, and they're receiving all the benefits of being a Catholic. What say you, Ray?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that when you look at this from, especially with what you mentioned about some people just receiving, 6 times a year and whatnot, I guess in our view today, we think that receiving the Eucharist is a right.
Right.
Like we have the right to do it.
Yeah, and we should be doing it all the time.
It's actually a gift. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't know if there's nothing super bad with that idea, but at the same time, we need to realize, I get into this conversation a lot with in vitro. Having kids is a right. No, it's a gift. Right. If we don't have the ability to receive Jesus because we don't have enough priests, then so be it. And maybe we need to have a conversation about how we need to, increase vocations and, desire for holiness so that there will be enough. It's almost like if we make an exception here, it's going to be an exception everywhere. And that's what I've seen with everything in the church, right? Mm-hmm. It's well, can we have the tabernacle on the side so the priest can be in the center? And it's well, just for this case, so that when he's saying the homily, he's facing the tabernacle or something like that,
Yeah.
And then everywhere.
Or you go to the nursing home. I mean, does the priest really need to carry a suitcase full of vestments? I mean, why can't he just, put on an alb and that's it? You do this and pretty much you erode Catholicism until all you have left is a Bible church fundamentalist or evangelical whatever, We have standards and we have ways of doing this and solving these problems that are hundreds of years old. Mm-hmm. And when you create new things like Eucharistic ministers, you create new problems that the wisdom of the church never solved because those things were never there before.
Mm-hmm. And really, what does that do? I think that Fulton Sheen used to talk about how the priest was the priest victim, right?
Yes.
It was a twofold thing. And when I think about that, Father John Howell was a perfect example of a priest victim, right? He's literally being a victim soul for, those that, have been sexually abused and the priests and whatnot. That is another way to do that, right? If I am a priest and all I do is, and I understand everyone needs a vacation and whatnot, and we can't stretch them too thin, but I think we need that challenge because it's in the people that are dying, seeing the love that priests have for them,
right? To
come out to the nursing home. Because you almost look at this the other way. I'm dying in a nursing home and my priest doesn't love me enough to go out to see me. That's maybe a more cynical way to look at it, But that's, I mean, I can see people seeing it that way, you know. Um, it's really like the call to holiness that we all see. And then, you know, my family's going to visit, and it's different when you see a priest and his cassock walking in, like anywhere, you're like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Like imagine what that, like the evangelization opportunities that there would be for Protestants that are at the nursing home, you know, families visiting, or you're going to someone's house because they're sick. My wife, you know, we had to stay in the hospital. So the priest didn't come. So, you know, a normal like lady came, and it was just like, oh, cool. But like if our priest would have came, like our pastor, that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like that would have been a really memorable thing that like my priest cared enough that like, you know, she had to get like 4 transfusions. So she had to stay in, and like, I went to Latin mass fortunately, but, he couldn't make it out there. So
Yeah.
I should have asked our fraternity priest to come out, but I didn't.
I bet he would have come.
I bet he would have come.
I've been
Yeah.
amazed. Our fraternity priests have not only shown up for us in crises, but for our family members who aren't even Catholic. When our pastor, I said, my grandmother she was a lapsed Catholic. She's dying. Will you go visit her? He visited her twice and tried to save her soul, gave her the brown scapular. I mean, heroic good things that are happening there. One of the cool things about priests going to nursing homes and hospitals, especially in their cassocks, to bring confession and the Eucharist, is I've heard these stories from priests. They're so beautiful. They'll be ministering to someone in a room. Maybe there's another bed of someone, and they'll give last rites to a Catholic person that's dying. And the person will say, Father, I'm not Catholic, but I'm dying too. Will you do that for me?
Wow.
And they'll say, are you baptized? I mean, they'll ask the questions, are you baptized? Sometimes they're not baptized. They get baptized. Right? If they're not, they'll say, well, I can only give it to you if you're Catholic, if you profess the Catholic faith in danger of death. And they'll say, I profess it. Right? I mean, we don't know how the Holy Ghost is working, you know, and there are people who in their final hours of life, it just so happened that they were in the same room as this Catholic where the priest came, and that person, like a thief on the cross, gets saved.